Hi everybody, I'm Mark Gaynor. I'm a professor of health management and policy at St. Louis University. I'm going to talk to you today about how to design a course. Today we're going to talk about several topics. We're going to define what learning objectives are. We're going to talk about a competency-based learning model. We're going to describe what students should be assigned. We're going to talk about how do we define a reading list. How do we tell a story that the students will understand? We're going to look at how to build a detailed syllabus so we have a roadmap for the class so both the instructor and the student knows what's coming next. And lastly, we're going to talk about creating slides and lectures and video so we can provide content to the student in the best way. Now, this course is in two parts, and in part one, we're going to talk about learning objectives and competencies, and we're going to talk a little bit about a structure called Bloom's taxonomy. So we work on a competency-based model of education, and what this means is we are trying to teach students skills rather than abstract concepts. We want our students to know how to go out in the world and solve problems with the concepts that we teach them. We teach them competencies at different levels, at beginning, intermediate, and advanced. But the concept and the key is that we want to have students that are going to go out and find a problem and be able to solve that problem in real time with real data. Now, St. Louis University is an expert at the competency model, and we are one of the first universities that developed a competency model for health management education. Our model has 6 different areas. I won't go into the areas. These are typical areas that you would expect a manager to need to understand: leadership, management, science, and analysis. The way that we have come up with the competencies for our model is we've talked to the stakeholders. So we've done analysis, we've talked to managers, we've talked to organizations that hire our students, and we found, for example, that critical thinking and problem solving is very important. And so we have a lot of competencies that reflect that. So by doing research with the actual stakeholders, we have determined what our students need to know. Now, we want to have learning objectives that link with our competencies. So for the course that I'm going to teach, which you'll see an example of in the next part of this course, I want my students to understand that healthcare is a complex environment, and there's a lot of processes in healthcare, and these are complex processes, and they're not going to be easy to understand and fix. I want my students to understand how to use data to improve a process. First, they need to understand that there's a problem. They need to understand how to use the data to figure out what the root cause of the problem is, and then they need to use data to show that we have solved the actual problem. The outcome that I want from my students is I want them to be able to improve a process. I want them to be able to evaluate a process, look at the data from a process, analyze the process, and make it better. From examples in healthcare could be I might have patients that are falling, and I want to reduce the number of falls. That's a process. Now, when I talk about what my students learn and what I want them to know, I use Bloom's taxonomy. And the reason that it's not I, it's more St. Louis University uses Bloom's taxonomy, is we have a program that is accredited. And typically accredited programs want to use a standardized way to describe what we're teaching our students. And Bloom's taxonomy allows me to do this. Now, there's different levels of this taxonomy, from remember to create. Remembering is the very basic level where we present something to a student and we expect them to be able to regurgitate it. Creating is a very top level, and that is more what academics do, create new frameworks. We generally expect our students to be able to evaluate, analyze, and apply what we teach them. So we're looking at the upper areas of this triangle. Now, between each of these levels of understanding, the lines are not clear. So We need to look at this conceptually. It's a nice framework, but it's not always clear that where remembering begins to be understanding. This is another way we can look at Bloom's taxonomy, and it just describes what each level is in a little bit more detail. We don't really need to go into detail on this. You can look this up. There's lots of documentation on Bloom's taxonomy. And that ends part 1 of the course on course design, and I will see you in a little bit for part 2 where I give an example.